Technology around us is moving at an amazing rate. With any online device, I can connect with anyone around the world at the touch of a button. But what impact does this have on our personal, social, and even moral lives? Join me for real stories, real issues, and real views. This is Real Talk. Welcome to the show. I'm your host Ghalib Khan, and on today's Real Talk, we're discussing the internet and the impact it has on our lives. Now, in today's fast-moving society, we become reliant on gizmos and gadgets, but we don't often stop to think what implications this has on us, both socially and psychologically. On today's show, we're going to be discussing if our generation of internet users actually use the internet as an aid or whether it's become an addiction. On the panel today, we have Jonathan Davies, who's an internet entrepreneur and managing director of Liaise Online. Fazal Ahmed, an IT specialist and has been involved in the internet on a managerial level for over 20 years. And finally, we have Richard Millington, a clinical psychologist who works in the NHS. Now, I'm sure everyone here in the studio has got plenty they want to say, but firstly, let's take a listen to the word on the street.
1.25 billion people are using the internet these days. With the global population of about 6 billion, that means that about a sixth of the world is using the internet these days. Tweets, blogs, pokes. 10 years ago, these things didn't really mean much to us, but now, with things like Facebook and Twitter, they've become more and more popular, especially with the youth of today. Now, what's going on? Things are changing a little bit. Face-to-face interaction is being lost. Is the youth of today losing the value of face-to-face interaction? Or is this new social networking, the websites and all of the things on the internet, are they revolutionizing the way we live our lives? Are we communicating in the right way? 67% of online communication is on social networking websites. And 10% of all time spent online is on these websites. We want to ask, what kind of implications do these things have? Is the youth of today going to know how to communicate face-to-face in the real world? And how is it going to affect their normal lives? What about the more serious issues like cyberbullying and internet, privacy invasion? Over to you, Ghalib.
Well, there were some really interesting views there from that video, and let's take this straight to the panel. Jonathan, how do you think the internet has grown over the last few years?
Massively. It's at an ever-increasing rate. There's always more and more stuff going on. There's more people tune in. 10 years ago, you had the early adopters, a few people having a look at the internet and using it in a very technological savvy way, as your chap here can demonstrate. But as it gets easier to use, and there's more tools that people can deploy and play with, then more are going to join in.
Okay, Fazal, so over the last 10, 20 years, what kind of growth have we seen on the internet?
I think the main thing is, before the internet, you could talk to people in your local area, in your city or in the country, but the internet's changed things. You could be talking to anyone anywhere in the world about anything, and that's the thing, and it's instant communication globally. That's the thing that's changed. We haven't yet got into space, but I'm sure we'll get there soon.
And Richard, what's your views on the growth of the internet?
My angle would be that it's gone from being the province of aficionados and academics to being compulsory. You cannot really survive in employment nowadays without knowing the nuts and bolts.
Okay, well, you mentioned the employment. How does it affect you in your daily jobs? Jonathan, how do you work with the internet in your
All the time. All the time. I'm helping businesses get tuned in, so that means that I've got to stay abreast of what's going on and know what the latest widgets that the guys are playing with. And it's fascinating talking to the younger generation because they know far more than we know, because they're up to date with what's going on and they're using it, Right. So a young person with total confidence about themselves is going to be completely lethal out there and get to wherever they want to go.
Right. Okay, so let's move to the audience here. If I can get some views, how do you guys here use the internet?
Over the past few years, I've been using the internet daily, to be honest, and what I used to do back in the days, I used to go to the library and do my research there and go through books. But nowadays, the internet is there, and I just search everything on Wikipedia, and that solves my problem. And it's much quicker than going to the library.
Okay, so let me go to the panel. I mean, Fazal, earlier, Richard mentioned that before it used to be only with the academics. So how has the internet developed so much so that young people are now can take such an integral part out of it?
I think email, I mean, I've been using email since the early 80s, but it was just email within my company. What's different is now everyone has got an email. It's not just business folk, everyone at home, your mum, your sisters, your brothers, your friends, they've all got email. And that's the first thing, that they use that to communicate rather than picking up the phone. But for business people, you're finding now that you're often having all of your conversations with your clients over email and phone. You're not spending so much time with your clients. You're sending tenders to clients over the email. Right. They're asking you questions over the email. The whole thing has just become a lot quicker.
Right, okay. So specifically, I mean, within research and business, let's open this up to the audience here. As a group of students, how much do you use the internet for research and for schoolwork? Let's get some views.
Well, before, like back in primary school, secondary school, it was a lot of go on the internet, copy and paste. But now, as I've got to sixth form, I don't find that as reliable. So a lot of it would be getting my textbook out, going to the teachers, going to the library, finding a reliable textbook and using that. It's actually a lot quicker, I think, to find something reliable than to go on a number of sites and find most things which you can't really rely on.
Mm. And does your school or college actually use the internet to communicate with you a lot more, do you think?
Yeah, we have a system called VLE, which teachers can post our information onto our local network, which we can log on to. We can do like tests on it, get work from it, even email teachers questions. Okay, so let's go on a more general level. On a daily basis, how many hours would you say you guys use the internet? Let's get some views. What do you think? How many hours roughly a day?
I'd say because we use it quite a lot in school as well, generally, because especially with sixth form, maybe not to extent in secondary school. In sixth form, I'd say you still use it about a good 1 to 2 hours, especially in lessons, and when you get home, about another 2 or 3 hours minimum.
Okay, let's get some more views.
I think because of the ease and the access of it now, it's using it more and more. Before it was dial-up and it used to take a long time to get onto the internet. And the speed of it now as well, that it's much easier to use it, so you're more inclined to use it in the day. And I think it's the opposite. I think people use it more now for research than textbooks before because of the speed and access of it. Okay,
so this has got to be a positive thing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're making knowledge more accessible to young people. What do you think, Richard?
I think if you look back 200 years, the era of Jane Austen, people would, if they had the money for it, they'd write 2, 3, 4 letters a day to people. They'd also keep a journal, and the purpose of that journal was actually to share your daily life. It wasn't just to record it for yourself. When your distant relatives or your friends came to visit, you'd actually give them the diary to read through. So it's not, perhaps it's what the internet can do for us now is something that we would have loved to do 200 years ago in terms of the sheer degree of connection with each other from day to day.
Okay, so first of all, what do you think are the positive aspects of that communication and that connection that Richard's just touched on there?
Well, if you relate it back to 200 years ago, this is not from personal experience, you would send a letter to an individual at a time. Now, at the touch of a button, you can send the equivalent of a letter to 200 people. I send, from my charity, Humanity First, I do a monthly mailer to show people the projects that we're doing. And once it's ready, I just hit a button. I've got a group for 2,000 people who are interested. Bang, it goes out to 2,000 people. I can't even imagine writing 200 or 2,000 letters to people to say this is what our charity is doing. So it's a different world now. Okay, so I mean, you've touched on Humanity First there. Obviously, you've got projects in Africa. How has the internet affected work on the actual ground over there? Well, it's made a massive difference because Africa is more connected than you might think. They've all got mobile phones, and increasingly they've got internet-enabled mobile phones. But also, we're finding that, for example, for disasters and long-term projects, where before you'd run out of a certain type of drug or run out of blankets or run out of something, and the next time you did a a phone call,
Right.
2 or 3 weeks later you'd find out. Now you can actually track it all over the internet, and they can warn us 2 or 3 weeks in advance that we're running out of this, can you send some more to Nigeria or Ghana or wherever. It's made a massive difference.
Okay.
And they're just as happy using the technology as we are.